this drum is, the group is called Visioning Bear Singers, but it's part of the Visioning Bear Circle Intertribal Coalition. This was a group that formed out of finding ways to prevent sexual violence in the indigenous community in the whole New England area. We started out in Western Mass, but now we cover the whole of New England. And we use this drum as a community building for our group. And you notice that some of the songs in the last song that we did on Visioning Bear spoke about our commitment to keep children safe in our community, keep everyone safe in our community. And so, to my left is Judy Rowe. She was one of the original people who was involved actually in building this drum, and one of the first people when we first began. Actually in 2006 we were part of a mainstream organization called the New England Learning Center for Women in Transition, and then in 2014 we went out on our own and formed the Visioning Bear Circle Intertribal Coalition. And this is Suzanne. She too has been around for a long time in our group, and was instrumental in helping us develop a curriculum that teaches the traditional values of actually the 7 grandfather teachings are included in those values. And those values are about love and compassion, having bravery, having courage, humility, having empathy, and connecting to the land, and also having sacredness and vision about ceremonial things that we do, and honesty and truth. And honesty and truth are not the same thing, because what one believes honestly may not in fact be the truth. So you're always looking for the truth. It's like a lifelong endeavor. So that's like, this drum is the heart of keeping all that. And we're basically like the 4 directions that have been on this drum.
Yes.
And like we have written a lot of the songs ourselves, and a lot of them are traditional songs from the people in our community. So we weave them together, and we're actually able to perform at powwows, and and we've done that throughout the New England area at various times. So we're really honored to be here today and share our music. And this is Mary Whelan. I have to say about Mary, she really is the one who actually writes a lot of our songs. She's a songwriter of us. And she's done some powerful songs that have to do with the residential boarding school situation that have been very meaningful for people to hear her sing that. And also some of the songs we wrote together on the drum. We're going to sing one of those today. It started out with a phrase one of us got by the water, and then we all added verses to it. So we kind of collaborate that way. And I left out our biggest songwriter at first. Like, she's the one, she's the one that really has done so much. Like this last song that we wrote, I believe that's one of the things you wrote, Mary. So this is Mary Whelan, and I've been trying to pass over the drum keeping responsibilities to Mary for a long time, but not yet, but coming soon to a theater near you.
Well, we'll talk to Mary in a moment. Would you play another tune for us?
it's about gathering everyone together. Just before the powwow is going to do its first song of the day, gathering people into the circle. You sing this and it gets all the dancers together and they line up according to how they're going to go into the circle. And it might be good to know for the viewers that the way people line up at the powwow, with the men first, then the boys, then the women, then the girls, it's done because that's how it was done with the Trail of Tears. That the men were in front, and what they did was separate the families from each other. And by having the elders in the front, then people would see that the elders would be falling first, and then the families were separated as they went. And I don't think a lot of people are aware of that.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, so it's very powerful. And, you know, it's not about the men going first at all. It's really about how the march went, to remind ourselves of that dispossession, you know, from our land. So it's very meaningful.
Well, what sparked the interest in you?
For myself,
Yeah.
well, I have in my ancestry, you know, I have a lot of indigenous in my blood, and like so, it was really important to me that I follow that. And in me, I have both the colonizer and the colonized inside me.
Well,
So
most
coming to
people
grips
do.
with all of that, to me, like it's important that at this time in history, that we have an opportunity to do what's called lighting the eighth fire, where we can then become, all the races come together in equity. In our belief, like no one owns land, that the land is its own sovereignty. And if we don't own the land and we all share the land equitably, then none of us are homeless, none of us would be homeless, and we would all share the food, and we would know what the food was medicine. We would know how to share that, so that all of us would be living like in villages. That was one of the things that could have happened during colonization, because in the Seven Fire Prophecy, they talk about the coming of the white man during the fourth fire, and during that time when they came, they didn't know which one was coming, the one that would shake the hand in brotherhood, or the one that would be greedy and take the land. So I guess both have come. But at this time, there's a lot of people really interested in knowing the history, especially in our area, having had
Absolutely.
a massacre over there at Turners Falls with, involving the Pecumtuck people. And by, you know, truth and reconciliation means you say what happened, you recognize that the ancestors are all living here, and now we have a chance to come in peace with each other. And that's what our group is all about. That's the work that we do. And it involves letting go of any pain from the past and building what we have now. But it starts with being honest. And then it says that all of us have suffered from this, not just one group of people. We've all been hurt by this, because we could be living just in peace with each other. You know, and if people, when they first came here, they could have lived anywhere, because nobody had an idea of owning land at all. So everybody could have just lived in peace right from the start.
Yeah.
But people have in their heads what they've grown up with and what they learned, because the people who first came, they came here, you know, they weren't being treated well where they were. They came here with all their pain. They came here needing the trees, the eastern white pines in our area, for their navy, because they had devastated and deforested their own land. So it really was about that. But it's like getting, we had amazing 130-foot pines in our area. And like right where we are, it's so significant. People are talking about it, not to make anyone feel bad, but to recognize the opportunity that was missed then, but the opportunity that we could do now. That we could all live in peace now, by just seeing each other as human beings, that we're all the people now. No matter what race we are.
Yeah.
We're just the people here. And we're all just trying to make sure our children are safe, and we're just trying to make sure that we all have enough food, and we all have a place to live, and that we have a community that we can trust and feel safe in.
Chicopee was originally Pecumtuck land. Tell me a little bit more about that Turners Falls. massacre?
Well, actually, you know, the man that came, Turner's Falls, he was Turner. He was living in the Boston area, and I think, is he a Baptist, or he was a religion that they weren't allowing to go.
Baptist is what
Yeah.
he wanted to have his own Baptist church.
And they weren't letting him do that, and he already had terminal cancer. And so they asked him if he would come over here to our area and lead that charge, you know, lead that massacre against the people that were living
Organize a
here.
militia.
Yeah, that if he would do that, then they would let him have his church and it would be able to go forward. So he came down here knowing that he was going to be not here long, and this was a way for him to get his church on the ground. So it's not like he was this completely horrible human being. He was somebody who thought he was doing something good for his people, and then he got people around here to join in with him, like Lieutenant Holyoke. Some of the cities are all named after these folks. But when they came here, they just raided a group of women and elders who were left behind while all the soldiers were out. So, you know, they just, you know, just went in and wiped all the people out that around Peskyumkid, all around the area there. And it was really an important battle because they were running out of money, but because they were able to succeed in that, they were able to get all those trees and they were able to send it back to Europe. And really their navy was not, the English Navy was kind of not doing so well worldwide at that point. There were other countries that had better navies because they didn't have the wood. They had to have those strong, straight masts for the naval ships, and then that allowed for them to take that kind of military, you know, charge. Then they became like the Navy by getting the trees that were in our area. And like, you know, there's a lack of old-growth trees in this area. There's still some, but not a lot. But it's like there was a lot of devastation of the trees in this area to fill that Navy need on the part of the settlers. And when I say this, I'm not talking big judgments. This is what they did. And,
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that came over, some of them, they were not yet seen as white people, like the Irish. And I think we're working with somebody now that's been very close, you know, and he's actually a Quaker. And we've been working around what his family did. His family came here. They were indentured, but they were able to get through like the period of time they were indentured, and then they were able to acquire land. So I think you can't underestimate resources, and land is a big resource. So like the taking of the land, you know, was a key to controlling all the resources. But think about it, the trees and the plants and the animals, if we didn't have them, we wouldn't be alive. They can do without us, but we can't do without them. They would be fine without human beings. They were our first teachers. Indigenous people believe that they're our first teachers. They even told us what was safe to eat because we would watch what they ate. They showed us everything about the plants, what they were good for. People had connections with plants and they would know what these plants were good for. They would know which ones were good for younger people, older people, and they could really tell. And they would never take the first or the last of any plant. They wanted to be sure that the plant would go on. And like, so there is still now a lot of medicine people who know of plants that
Yes.
they're not yet now sharing because they are fearful that if it was known the properties of these plants, that they would then become exploited and become extinct. So they protect the plants. So, and then when people meet people and they're involved in native culture, those plants become available for healing ceremonies. And a lot of people have, you know, been helped by that. I personally know somebody that was cured of AIDS in the 1980s when there were no plants. But he went out to South Dakota and, in a sacred ceremony, and he was actually cured. He's still alive today, and he had full-blown AIDS. And at the time,
Wow.
there was no cure. And so, I mean, their powers are still there, and the knowledge is still there. And what we really would love to see is eventually where all of these things could be shared with everyone, when everyone is able to be in a state of respect. Because if you look at the plants and the animals, some of them are older than us, and they are beings like us. They have the same psychology we have. They hurt when they're mistreated, and like they actually have feelings.
Absolutely.
And you can see that, like they've been experiments, like you put a glass of water in the refrigerator, 2 glasses, and one you speak nicely to, you tell the water that you really appreciate it, you love it, and the other one you swear at, you carry on, and you say, those 2 waters don't taste the same, one tastes terrible. It's like, it's an easy experiment. Children can easily get into this, like they can see how much of an impact they have when they're involved in growing food.
Absolutely, yes.
And the food that you speak to, it becomes, there's a relationship there, and it responds. They actually have feelings just because they don't express it like we do. They actually have feelings, and amazing things can happen. All of us have been in some ceremonies and done some things where you could actually see that the land actually becomes part of the conversation in these amazing ways. It's like it just does healing work with you, and you just have to be open to it.
Absolutely. When I was writing the Heartbeat book, the publisher kept saying, what makes it indigenous? Is it just because it's indigenous people making it? But is there something that ties it together? And I racked my brain until I stumbled across a book, and it explained that there's an interconnectedness between humans, nature, and supernature or spirit. There's a connectedness. It's not, human beings don't have that exclusive control. It has to be a give and take. And I wrote, if somebody believes in treating nature with that respect and elders with respect, they're on my team no matter who they are. And if they believe in exploiting those resources, they could be my mirror image. They're not on my team.
And we're here about music, and I think about music as so spiritual. It's like for instance, like when Mary writes songs, it feels like they come right from the ether. It comes like it comes almost all done, like it just comes out. And one of the songs that she wrote was called Unspeakable Pain, about the residential boarding school, and she sang it at a national conference that we were presenting at. And this woman from Samoa started singing the song, and she, the words just came out of her. She had never seen them before, but they were both singing, so people couldn't tell who was singing the song.
Wow.
And that's like
She
kind
was
of
that
like
connected.
that connected. Like
Wow.
there's like this way that we can all connect, and I think music is one of those ways. It's such a healing force, and it can put things together in ways that you can't do just speaking like we are now. It's like it hits you in the heart. It really makes you get chills and goosebumps when you hear something beautiful like that.
Yes, can you do an original tune?
Yeah. This is one we wrote together. Well, actually, Demand to Be Heard. This is an environmental one, and Mary wrote this. Yeah, it's next on our list, but and this one is really danceable, like indigenous dancing. So let
You
me
want
just.
to talk about the tune?
Oh, all right. And to be heard. I don't know. I just kind of wrote it. I don't know why I wrote it. I'm not sure what to say about it, actually.
What sparked it?
Did you hear the animals and trees talking to you?
Maybe. It's been a long time since I wrote it. I think I wrote it like in 2014 or something like that. But so I'm not sure what to say about
Is
it.
it-
Maybe
is
I'll
there
think
a-
of something.
Is there a process you use in songwriting?
Um,
Is it conscious or subconscious?
Both. I mean, sometimes things just come right out without me having to think about them at all, and it just, sometimes it practically just write it all out, no, you
Wow.
know, yeah. And in no time at all, in a matter of minutes, I've written the song, but sometimes I do have to really work at it, like part of it comes out, and then I have to work on the rest of it, yeah. And I do sometimes do things like I'll do with any kind of writing, not just with songs, where I'll do writing kind of exercises. And, you
All right, let's hear some music.
know, okay.
Here we go.
To be heard.
Demand to be heard, the Vision Bear Singers. You were telling me that you built this drum. Tell me the process that went into creating it.
Well, first, we decided we were going to have one, and the reason that we did was held our community together, and we wanted to be able to have gatherings where we could drum and share with other people. But mostly it was about us and, you know, our group. Like, we started out, we would do what I call all our work in the morning, all our goals around sexual violence prevention in the morning. Then we would all feast in the afternoon. Then we would drum all the rest of the time. And like, this drum became really important. And it was important that we all put our energy in it. There's tobacco inside, and there are hawk feathers and different things inside the drum.
Inside.
Yeah, and what was important about that is that we all had a role in, you know, took turns lacing it, you know, cutting the lacing. Everybody had a hand in doing that. It was a lot of work to make enough lacing to go around that with just one lace. There's no knots in this thing.
Did you have a blueprint?
No, it's just that we have been building drums for a bit, and how we started is kind of mystical, really, because we found out that when we would build drums or play drums, people would tell me, the elders would tell me that they could hear me playing when I wasn't where they were, and I thought, oh, they're just being nice to me, you know. I didn't believe that. I said, oh, they're just really trying to just be accepting, right? So I went off on Vision Quest, actually in New Braintree, and I brought a little tiny drum with me, and I was playing there, and Mary heard me in another state. She heard me playing that. Well, she was really worried about me going out there and doing a Vision Quest with no food and no water, because she said I couldn't get through a day without popcorn. So she was really worried. She didn't say much about it till it was time to go. But I went nonetheless, and like every day someone would come. And then when I realized I trusted her, because she's really a skeptic and grounded, so I trusted that she really heard it. Then I said, then I have something special with the drum. Then I started building drums, and I guess the rest of the people here could tell you that my drums are really wanted by other elders. So I made drums for people all over the country now, and medicine people have drums that I've made. So then we made this together, and I'd say we made it in a really sacred way. Like, it kind of made itself, and like, it was really a lot of work just making it. You know, that cedar is protection, and it's a protection for the drum. And then this drum, the other side is just as nice as the top side here, and then we just began to play it, and we woke it up. The first time we played it, we were up all night. Remember that? We were up all night, and we just kept playing it, and then it became like its own thing, and you know, and it's made a lot of changes over time as to, you know, what we could see and hear. Like, when you have time to really look at the drum, you can see that there's people in it, there's animals in it, there's a bear in it. And right now I even see a little duck in it. There's a little bill right there. And you can see the feet coming down, and see, like, you begin to see all the things that are in it. And it changes over time, so it's like, it looks different in here, you know, just from the lighting, but it's like, it's special for us that way, because it talks to us when you say, do you have anything you want to add about what this drum is for us?
Well, definitely we wanted it so that when we ran out in the community and spoke about what our group was doing and for against violence and stuff, when you played the drum, people would come and listen and see it. And that was an important part of our having the drum, not only for ourselves.
I know over the last couple of years, it's unfortunate, but there's been an increase in that need for missing and murdered Indigenous women. Why is that such a pressing issue?
Well, I think all of the history comes down through us and the DNA and the violence and stuff, and it's in need of being recognized and repaired. And so it's a very important thing.
One of the important things about the missing and murdered is that there is no law enforcement will to do anything about it. There's a different tier of justice in the indigenous community where it's a federal prosecution, and you have like maybe 6 officers for, like, say, the whole size of Rhode Island to cover a big area, so it's easy to do. And, like, you know, there's easy to just take people and disappear and then find them later on. People are left to find that people in the community are looking for their own relatives. Like, they go out and they try to find people on our own, and, like, so indigenous people have taken a lot of responsibility for trying to find their relatives. And, you know, there's still, some of them are, you know, people are murdered, and they, you know, they have red dresses in the trees just to let people know that they're not forgotten.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just think it comes down to a legacy of how you value life, you know, and the fact that, and, you know, most people don't care to look for indigenous women. It's becoming like, even in Massachusetts now, they have the Department of Sexual and Domestic Violence and Missing and Murdered and Human Trafficking. Because there's also that, the predation on people to become sexual slaves in a sense. Some are even brought overseas to other countries, so it's like a really big problem. And some simply disappear after having been sexually exploited. They're murdered and left somewhere for no one to find. And unfortunately, a lot of people are not found. There's that new TV show that deals with the Alaskan natives, like
Yes.
yeah, the journalists and people looking on their own. The journalists are really, you know, pushing the issue. I think everyone but law enforcement. You know, it's like there's not a one tier fits all law enforcement in this country. There's you know, different layers of that are involved in Indian country that are not present someplace else. So it's like the tribal police, and again, very few people. And then they're trying to make new laws all the time to try to make it so that there's equitable justice, but it's really not there yet.
How do you use music to bring awareness to all this?
So we write songs and we talk about it, because, you know, kind of like what we do, like we're a sexual violence prevention organization mainly. We deal with all forms of violence, but I think sexual violence is the one that we mostly have been funded by. And so I'm, you know, kind of emphasizing that right here. But it is the issue that most pressing in indigenous country. It's like, because of the residential boarding school where 85 to 100% of the children, boys and girls that were in the schools were all sexually assaulted in the schools. It's like kind of becoming common knowledge in the United States that that's been the case. And now you see all of the different things coming to light, like Kamloops, and you see that there were buried children. This is all coming to being now. Ourselves, I wasn't wondered why, when the sexual abuse happened, you know, in this country, that they didn't see the connection between when the boarding schools closed, all those clergy, where did they think they went?
Yeah.
They were reassigned to other parishes where they carried out the abuse that they were doing before. And that was all covered up. And like, I could easily see the connection, because where were they going to be going? They, you know, now that, you know, they're doing something about it, but it took a long time for people to really see any connection between what was going on. A lot of these institutions were used by the federal government to actually do all those boarding schools, you know, and then all of those troubles happened in there. And like, so it's kind of really a sad thing for our country to look at, you know, to treat people like they're that they're not owned by anyone else, that you are a sovereign person in your own right, and you have a right to decide, who you share your life with and all of these things, not to be taken advantage of or to be exploited by someone who has a lot more power over you.
In doing the research for the new book, Rise Up, I dug deeper and deeper and deeper and came to the 15th century and the doctrine of discovery. And that to me was ground zero, that everything that's happened since goes right back to that one or several series of documents. In a way, it was a good sign that the Pope came out and at least acknowledged it, but there's still a lot to be done. How important was that doctrine or what the Pope did? Did it have any effect?
Well, if you think about it, it changed everything. Because it said if you were not a Christian, when most of the world was not a Christian, there
Yeah.
were no Christians here, and certainly no Christians in Africa either. So what they did was they said if people were not a Christian, you could take their land and you could hold them also into perpetual slavery.
Yeah.
And then they had the Esoteric Bull and the doctor together. It was sort of like the government and the religion piece. And you look at what's going on today, there are people who still think we should roll back to that time, that we should just be a Christian nation, and that means that all the people who practice another form of religion are, again, being seen as less than, and that we should not acknowledge them. That's like going back to that original doctrine when they first set it up, because at first people don't want to acknowledge this, but the doctrine of discovery took all the land away from native peoples because we were seen as savages, and the way to actually do it was so savage, you wondered the wrong people were being called savage, because literally people were paid for scalps to bring to the State House and get paid.
Yeah.
And right in our area, there's a lot of rich history with all these things. But the thing, like with the doctrine, is it still lives in our Constitution, because one of the Supreme Court judges, I think John Marshall, made
No,
sure
Ruth-
it still lives there, because they had a
Ruth Bader
problem around the
Ginsburg
land.
as well.
Yeah, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg had to deny land claims because she had to go by what was in the Constitution. And until that is taken out of our Constitution, it will be, there'll never be a way to address the land injustice.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, all of us, right, when you look at, if some of us are lucky to own a house, it says right on it, we're tenants. And the same on the reservation, they only have right of occupancy, and so don't all of us. All of the deeds say tenancy, every one. So whether it's in the entirety or in common, the fact of the matter is the government through eminent domain can come and take anybody's property. And it's interesting because that amendment lives in the same one that says you have a right not to incriminate yourself. All those laws about eminent domain live with that amendment. And people are aware of this all across the country, like what can you do? Like if you think about it, what if nobody owned land? What would it be like if you could imagine no land ownership? And then what would ensue from that everybody would have like a place to live? Because there's enough space.
But I think it goes the other way too. If nobody, it's not that nobody owns the land, it's that everybody owns the land. So they all have responsibility to that land.
Yes, you have a responsibility for the land. Like here in Western Mass, if you look at what we have, like if something happened to the food supply, in Western Mass, we are growing a lot of our own stuff right here. We have winter, farmers markets, we have hoop houses, we have people who are into the local, the local economy, the local food supply. We wouldn't fare so badly because we're growing our own food here. And a lot of what we grow ends up in the grocery store, and we end up buying the local food, right? And a lot of that food is grown in a good way. I mean, all around. I mean, it's really amazing. I love living in Western Mass for that reason. And we have like a consciousness around that. So like if we were, like to say, all the land was owned in common, we would easily be able to, like, you know, begin to all work together to work it. And then we would probably design a structure where we would all have input into what needed to be grown, when, how, who was going to work it, how it was going to be distributed, right? That could all be done, like, with a conscious community of people, all like having input into that decision-making process.
And we would
It
all
would be
eat.
regional.
We would all have enough to eat.
We'd all have enough. And we wouldn't be throwing food out. We wouldn't be like what we do now. We throw a lot of food away because, and around here, people don't just dig in the earth with things that destroy the nutrients. People have an awareness about layering, and actually it's less intensive. Takes less work to layer than it does to dig in with tillers. And when you go down about 4 inches in, you destroy the land. Then you have to put fertilizer in it, and then now you're destroying your own food source because you're contaminating it. Whereas you could layer it, you could compost, you could put all your stuff and layer it, newspapers, everything, worms, you know, and get it all going, and then you've got a really healthy environment, you know,
Yeah.
to work.
We need to start
We
cooperating.
could do it. It's just a change in the dial.
Yeah.
That's it. Change the dial, and say, hey, you know, we don't want to ship the food all over. We want to have our own food that grows here. Because what grows in your own area is what is the food you need for where you live.
Yes. Let's have another turn.
Okay.
That had a really deep, soulful voice. I have a voodoo drum that I got in Haiti with real heavy wood, scooped out and cleared with the animal skin stressed over it and the stakes driven into it. And it's got such a deep bass voice that when I hit it, you can feel that bass. The same with this. It has that, you can feel that bass go right through your soul when you play it. We could talk about this all day and all night and still just hit the surface. I appreciate you coming in. It was a real treat. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Chicopee Cultural Council. and we'll see you around. Would you play one more tune to lead us out of here?
Okay, all right, then we'll do this beautiful song here, Sing with the Water. They can fade us out,
They
right?
could fade us out, whatever.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Just fade us out.